Hi, everyone. So, we're just going to start here with choosing your podcast topic. So, the quick and easy thing of this is first off, whatever you are interested in, and additionally, have some level of expertise in at all. The big thing is if you're going to be recording a podcast, let's say weekly, monthly, you want to make sure it's something that you're going to be able to very consistently be able to speak on and remain engaging with. Additionally, and this kind of goes hand in hand with this first one, is researching your audience. So the first things first with that is all your audience research starts really by looking in a mirror. So if you are interested, let's say in video games, let's say retro video games specifically, chances are your audience isn't going to be the young video game audience, whereas it'll be a lot closer to your own age if you grew up on retro video games. This is the same kind of thing where if you are doing, let's say, classic cars, your audience is going to be basically your age if you're into it, plus or minus about 5 years. Now, that's a good starting point. Additionally, I would say with that is research. Look at other podcasts that are quite similar to what you want to be doing, and you can make very educated guesses based on who those hosts are, and in general, who in the community and their guests are going to be. This kind of can let you inform every single choice of your podcast as you move forward. So, who you're going to bring in for guests, if you're doing guests at all. Additionally, who you're going to advertise to, what's your social media platform. If you have a much older audience, chances are you're not going to want to advertise on TikTok as much. So it's just these ideas of think about who you are as a person, how you engage, and you can make informed choices based on the people that are going to be quite like you. And that's how you can really inform every choice made with your podcast. Additionally, with that, for selecting your podcast format, you really decide whether you have solo episodes, interviews, or are you going to have a co-host? I've listened to many podcasts that have quite a few people bantering off each other. I've been involved with a lot of those as well. And that's amazing. But also, just as many podcasts I've listened to are just one person talking into a mic. Really play to your own strengths and what you think is really going to be the most engaging. If you think you need people to bounce off of to become really engaging, absolutely grab a co-host. It's no bad option by any means. It's just making these intentional choices and moving forward with that. Now, I'm going to be passing this back over to Jay just to talk about naming your podcast.
So naming your podcast is very important because you're going to be distributing your podcast to hundreds of thousands of podcasts that are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all these different platforms. You want to have your name stand out and reflect what your topics are about. For instance, I do a retro video game podcast on Tuesday nights, and we're called the Retro Renegades. So we're a bunch of middle-aged men talking about video games back when we were children. That's what we do. The name is Retro Renegades. We have catchy artwork to go along with it. So when people scroll through, they see Retro Renegades. It looks like video games. They know what to click on. You also want to come up with a compelling description. For instance, make sure that when you're distributing your podcast to these platforms, you write in a very detailed description of what people are about to get into, what people are about to listen to. They want to know before they start listening to your podcast, is it something that they're interested in? Is it something that appeals to them? It could be about politics, it could be about religion, it could be about video games, it could be about music. As long as it has a detailed description, people know what they're going to listen to, make sure that's all written in your description. The next part is about a cover art. You'll also notice that if you've ever gone and looked at podcasts, they all have cover art, which is usually a square. There are many different places you can get free artwork from. We're not going to go into graphic design on this section, but you can find artwork in things like Canva. You can use free places like FreePic. You could go on Google, but you have to be careful. You don't want to use artwork that is owned by somebody. You want to make it unique. You can even use AI to create a piece of artwork for yourself. And last but not least, we're going to talk about theme music. With a lot of podcasts, you'll notice that they have music that either plays in the background during the whole podcast or it has an intro or an outro. We're going to briefly describe that and demonstrate that in this session. I'm going to now pass off the mic to Theo to talk about equipment and other things.
All right, so just going to quickly share my screen here. So, huge thing is gear. It's a very deep rabbit hole, and honestly, is the best time period to be involved in getting equipment for a podcast. Now, the big thing I would recommend, let's start off just with what you're recording into. Phones work, laptops work, all of that. As long as you can have some kind of recording software, it really doesn't matter where you route your audio into. Additionally, pair of headphones, literally any will do, especially if you have multiple hosts. You're all going to kind of want to hear yourself talking. So, a couple headphones, literally any do as long as they are comfortable for you. The biggest thing, though, is microphones. Honestly, podcasts are going to live and die by this. Yes, there are some on your laptop, there are some on your phone. They do in a pinch. I genuinely don't recommend them, though. The big things I would recommend are USB microphones. Now, like I said, it's a wonderful time. This is just the page of USB microphones. They range from $20 to over 1,000. Some immediate recommendations, though. Logitech makes this nice little guy. It's basically a Blue Yeti, except a little bit scaled down, plugs in via USB to your phone or laptop. Same with the classic Blue Yeti. Additionally, there is the AT2020 USB. This thing's amazing. I've used this quite a bit. Essentially, it is a studio microphone that has been turned into a USB microphone. On top of that, the huge thing I would recommend as well is getting yourself a pop filter. Essentially, one of these. This is just a little mesh that goes over top of your microphone that reduces what's called plosives. Basically, when you make a P sound, you can hear a P. That burst of air, if it goes directly to your microphone, will essentially cause a plosive. That there is just going to interrupt your audio, make it sound real bad. This here is just going to reduce that from happening, period. Now, the next thing really is mic placement. Again, this is kind of one of those things where a mic can live and die, like a podcast will live and die by. So, this little graphic here, although the microphone is pointing at their foreheads, kind of does show really what I'm talking about here. Basically, the microphone is pointed towards you and not the other person speaking. This reduces what's called bleed, where when you're talking into your microphone, your co-host microphone can hear you as well. The best way to reduce this is A, making sure they're pointed opposite each other, and also as much distance as you can do. If you are sat side by side right next to each other, you're going to get so much bleed from each other's microphones that your editing process is going to be not exactly fun. Now, on top of that, when you get to actually recording, there's plenty of software. Audacity is great. Adobe Audition is amazing. If you're on a Mac, GarageBand comes pre-installed. It's also a beast for doing just very basic podcast stuff. Like I said, deep, dark rabbit hole. You can go forever with different recording software and gear. The best thing is find one that works best for you and just learn it. Audacity is a great start. It's what we're going to be recommending for this one. Additionally, if you need to go over like Adobe Audition or GarageBand, by all means, reach out to us and we can set up a training session. Now, the big thing when you're recording as well, write an outline. Doesn't have to be a full script by any means. However, you want to know kind of the points you're going to hit, and you can make kind of those informed choices based on each of those topics, especially with an interview, because conversations can go any which way, and you don't want to derail that. But also, you want to make sure that your podcast is kind of on track with a general theme. Now, to cover some basic editing and cuts, I'm going to be passing this right back to Jay.
Okay, so let's get Audacity up on the screen. Let me know if everyone can see Audacity. Hope you all had a chance to watch over Theo's very detailed videos about how to install on a PC or Mac. And I hope you were all able to download the sample files that we sent along, or that Amanda sent along. So this is Audacity. I'm going to just briefly go over the interface. Up along the top, you'll see regular playback controls: pause, play, stop, rewind, fast forward, record. You'll also see over here these two options here that we're going to go over in more detail: is the selection tool and the envelope tool. And we'll discuss those during the editing process. To the right of those, we have zoom in and zoom out. These are ways that you can zoom into your audio file so that you can make more detailed edits. The most important part now is to make sure that we have your audio set up properly. So there's a button here called Audio Setup. I'm going to choose this, and now I'm going to choose my microphone. So under Recording Device, this will be your microphone. Mine is under Rodecaster Pro. Yours will be under whatever you have yours set to. Playback device is going to be your headphones or your speakers. Mine is also going to be Rodecaster Pro. And to test if these are going to work, we're going to do a quick recording. So I'm going to click the record button. Testing 1, 2, 3. If you notice, you're going to see a waveform appear. That means your recording is working. Click to stop. Playback. Testing 1, 2, 3. If you notice, you're going to see a waveform appear. That means your recording is working. Click to stop. Hopefully that worked for everybody. Close this out. The little X on the left corner will allow you to delete that track. These are all called tracks that you're going to be working with. Close this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to import a file that we've already prepared. There are multiple ways you can import. You can drag and drop from a folder, or you can basically say File, Import, Audio. And I'm going to browse to the folder that we sent you guys called Audio Samples. So the one we're going to edit today is called Complete Dry. Choose that, hit Open, and it'll appear in your timeline. So up along the top are your controls. We're going to click play. I'm going to play back the entire clip so you can hear what it's going to sound like, what we're going to edit. And you're going to hear mistakes, and we're going to end up editing those mistakes. Let's play back, and we're going to listen to this.
All right. I'm all set when you are.
Okay. So, Theo, I've been thinking about starting a podcast. Any tips on how to get started?
Yeah, absolutely. Podcasting is a lot of fun. First things first, you need a concept. What do you want your podcast to be about?
I'm thinking about discussing technology and its impact on society, maybe even interviewing experts in the field.
That sounds interesting. Once you have your concept nailed down, you need some basic equipment. A decent microphone is essential, along with some headphones for monitoring.
Got it. Do you have any recommendations for microphones?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Blue Yeti is a popular choice for beginners. It's affordable and delivers good sound and quality. Also considering investing in a pop filter to reduce any harsh sounds like popping or hissing.
That's helpful. What about recording and editing software?
There are plenty of options out there. Audacity is a free and user-friendly choice for editing, while for recording you might want to try GarageBand if you're on a Mac, or Adobe Audition for more advanced features.
Great, I'll look into those. How about a hosting? I always screw up on that one. Great, I'll look into those. How about hosting the podcast?
You'll need a hosting platform to distribute your episodes. There are several options like Podbean, Libsyn, or Anchor, which are all free and easy to use.
Sounds good. I'll wait till you finish fluttering there. Sounds good. What about promotion?
Promotion is key. Utilizing social media platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook to build your audience. Engage with your listeners and ask for feedback to improve your content.
Thanks, Theo. You've given me a lot to think about. I can't wait to get started on my podcasting journey.
Anytime, Jay. I'm excited to listen to your first episode. Let me know if you need any help along the way.
So that was it. So that's what we're going to edit today. As you guys noticed, we intentionally made some mistakes in there, and we're going to teach you guys how to remove some of those mistakes. So we're going to start by playing back the clip again and listening for our mistakes. So if you notice, we're hearing fluttering and paper moving.
All right. I'm all set when you are.
And we don't need that whole beginning section. So we're going to click stop. I'm going to make sure that my selection tool is selected. And I'm going to click, drag the section that I don't want. Click delete on my keyboard. And that portion is now gone. Now if I click play again, you'll notice that whole section's gone. So Theo, actually there should be a little more removed. Take this. This is going to be a trial and error process for you all. You're going to figure out what you want to keep and what you're going to want to remove. So, Theo, I've been thinking about starting a podcast. Any tips on how to get started?
Yeah, absolutely. Podcasting is a lot of fun.
And then just to let you guys know that when you're editing audio, it'll be constantly back and forth, back and forth. Don't rush through the process. If you rush through it, you probably make more mistakes. Be very precise and calculated when you're doing these types of things. So, Theo, I've been thinking about starting a podcast. Any tips on how to get started?
Yeah, absolutely. Podcasting is a lot of fun. First things first, you need a concept. What do you want your podcast to be about?
I'm thinking about discussing technology and its impact on society, maybe even interviewing experts in the field.
That sounds interesting. Once you have your concept nailed down, you need some basic equipment. A decent microphone is essential, along with some headphones for monitoring.
Got it. Do you have any recommendations for microphones?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Blue Yeti is a popular choice for beginners. It's affordable and delivers good sound and quality. Also considering investing in a pop filter to reduce any harsh sounds like popping or hissing.
That's helpful. What about recording and editing software?
There are plenty of...
So we noticed you made a mistake there. Let's click back here and play this back. Software.
There are plenty of options out there.
Software.
There are plenty of options.
So we know that this section here is what we want to delete. If you need to be more precise, you can use the magnifying glass up here to zoom in a little closer. Play back again. Software.
There are plenty of...
We know that this is the section we want to delete. Highlight this. Quick delete. Play back again.
There are plenty of options out there. Audacity is a free and user-friendly choice for editing, while for recording you might want to try GarageBand if you're on a Mac, or Adobe Audition for more advanced features.
Great, I'll look into those. How about a hosting? I always screw up on that one. So I messed up again. I'm going to zoom out so I can see that section again. Click back here on the timeline. Play back again. Great, I'll look into those. How about a hosting? I always screw up on that one. Great. So we know this section here is where I start the word great. That's where I clean it up. I'm going to delete this section by clicking and dragging. Delete again. Click back again. Play back.
Or Adobe Audition for more advanced features.
Great. I'll look into those. How about hosting the podcast?
You'll need a hosting platform to distribute your episodes. There are several options like...
You notice he said here. If you want to clean that up, we can zoom in again. Play back.
Audacity is a free and user-friendly choice for editing, while for recording you might want to try GarageBand if you're on a Mac, or Adobe Audition for more advanced features.
Great, I'll look into those. How about hosting the podcast?
You'll need a hosting platform to distribute your episodes.
So right there, Theo says I'll highlight this. Delete. Play back.
There are several options like Podbean, Libsyn, or Anchor, which are all free and easy to use.
You notice there's some paper fluttering. Back here, we can get rid of most of this.
Easy to use.
Highlight all this section here, which is paper. Delete. Play back. Sounds good. I'll wait till you're finished fluttering there. Sounds good. Made him another mistake. Sounds good. I'll wait till you're finished fluttering. This whole sounds good. This whole section we can delete. Sounds good. What about promotion?
Promotion is key. Utilizing social media platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook to utilize social...
You know he made a mistake there. Click over here. Play this back.
Utilizing social media platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook to utilize social media platforms.
So it's usually easy to remember the words that they use in the recording to know what to delete. So we know this whole section here is to be deleted. Highlight it all. Delete.
Utilize social media platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook to build your audience. Engage with your listeners and ask for feedback to improve your content.
Thanks, Theo. You've given me a lot to think about. I can't wait to get started on my podcasting journey.
Anytime, Jay. I'm excited to listen to your first episode. Let me know if you need any help along the way.
So that's it. So we've just edited the audio portion of all this podcast. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some music to the beginning and to the end, and then we're going to export it and prepare it for distributing to our podcasting platforms. So we're going to import some music by choosing File, Import, Audio, This time we're going to browse to our music folder that I provided. And there should be two files called intro and outro. Choose intro first, hit open. It's going to put it in its own track. I'm going to just move this over a little bit so we can hear what this sounds like. That all sounds great, but I think what we want to do is we want to have it fade in and then fade out before the voices start. So this is where the envelope tool comes in handy. We're going to zoom in closer to our music. We're going to choose the envelope tool. And what the envelope tool allows us to do is to pick certain points within the audio clip and allow us to taper it, therefore make it sound quieter and then get louder. So I'll show you how to do that. So now that we have the envelope tool chosen, I'm going to click a couple points, one here, and one at the beginning. And then I'm going to drag down. If you notice what happens when I drag down, it tapers it. And then we can move these points around to kind of give it that tapered effect. Just remember, the smaller it is, the quieter it is. So let's start really tight. And I'm going to play this back so you can hear what this sounds like now. That sounds great. I think I want to taper the end a little more. Choose here, and take the very end and taper it down a little more. Something like that. Let's play this back.
Let it come.
That sounds great. So now we want to overlap this to our voices. So I'm going to drag our section here. So by dragging, you can basically highlight over this, the bar that gives the name, and a little hand will appear. Once that hand appears, you can click it and drag it back and forth. So I'm going to drag it here so it overlaps. Let's rewind and play this back. So Theo, I've been thinking about, so there we go. We have our intro music in. Now we're going to add our outro music. File, import, audio. This time we're going to add our outro music. Hit open. It's going to add it to another track. To simplify things, I'm going to actually drag this track onto this track so that we only have one that has the music. And to delete the other track, you just click the little X in the corner, and we only have two. I'm going to drag this to the end. And if you can't see the end, there are multiple ways we can do that. We can zoom out, or we can choose these other options up here, like fit selection to width, or we can choose fit project to width. So for these purposes, we're just going to use the magnifying glass and zoom out. I'm going to position this one near the end. Click somewhere in my timeline. Thanks, Theo. You've given me a lot to think about. I can't wait to get started on my podcasting journey.
Anytime, Jay. I'm excited to listen to your first episode. Let me know if you need any help along the way.
So if you guys noticed there, because this clip already has a taper at the beginning and at the end, and if we overlap it to our voices, it'll start just before our voices end. I'm going to play that back one more time so you can hear it.
Build your audience. Engage with your listeners and ask for feedback to improve your content.
Thanks, Theo. You've given me a lot to think about. I can't wait to get started on my podcasting journey.
Anytime, Jay. I'm excited to listen to your first episode. Let me know if you need any help along the way.
So that's it. We just created our first podcast. Now we're going to do is export it so that we'll have a file to distribute to our podcasting platforms. So to do that, we're going to say File, Export Audio. It's going to give you an option to share to audio.com or on your computer. We're going to recommend using on your computer for this purpose. Export to computer. It's going to ask you to give it a name. We're going to call this podcasting session. It's going to ask you what kind of file format. For the highest quality, we would recommend using WAV. But if you're concerned about size, you want to make this a very small file to distribute by email or other ways, we're going to recommend using MP3. The rest of the presets should be fine. Make sure you choose a folder. We're going to just choose the folder that we provided to you guys. Oh yeah, I've already created a file in here called podcast test. We'll just call it that. Choose save, export, and that's it. We're done. Before we teach you guys how to distribute to a podcasting platform, I'm going to hand it off to Theo to show you a little bit about effects.
All right, so just going to be sharing my screen here real quick for you. And just 1 second here, just making sure. Perfect. So I'm going to be teaching you about effects plugins. Now, with the Zoom tutorial, or the tutorial that was distributed to you all, there is a little section on installing a thing called Muse. Now, effects plugins aren't like, let's say, a filter on Instagram in which it's very creative. This here is a lot more utilitarian. So first off, to add, there are technically 2 different spots to add effects. There's the one on the top and the one right here. We're going to fully ignore the one on the top for what we're going to be doing. So we're going to click on your track and effects. You're going to see this little button here that says add effect. Give that one quick click. And now on my side, you're going to see a lot more plugins than you're going to have. So ignore the long list, but for our case here, what we're going to be doing is scrolling down to Muse effects, and we're going to start with an effect called compression. In this case, just called compress. I'm going to click that, and that's going to apply this effect to this single track. You're going to click on compress, and you're going to see this little box pop up. Now, what is compression? A lot of times we think of that as like, in case of the WAV file, going into an MP3 where it's lower quality. Same word, different thing entirely for us. You see how the WAV file is very big in one spot and very small in the other. Now, if we wanted to correct that if we had multiple tracks, you could technically turn one up and down over and over and over again. But the problem with that is that's incredibly tedious. Also, it doesn't really account for the fact that some words are a lot quieter said than others. So in general, you want to carve out a bit of those dynamics. So at its whole, compression is making loud sounds quiet and quiet sounds loud. Basically, just giving a bit of a squash to our audio. Now, compressors have pretty aggressive interfaces most of the time. So for Muse, what they have is one simple knob. Every effect I'm going to show you today is going to be represented with one of these knobs. 1 equals nothing at all. 11 equals the most aggressive setting. Now, I'm just going to hit play on this real quick, and you're going to actually hear it kind of start to work.
So, Theo, I've been thinking about starting a podcast. Any tips on how to get started?
Yeah, absolutely. Podcasting is a lot of fun. First things first. So you hear how it went up in volume, but it kind of peaked at that one spot. Now, the big thing to note is if you slam compression all the way up, it's going to sound a little aggressive. Like,
I've been thinking about starting a podcast. Any tips on how to get started?
Because it's bringing up the literal ambient sound of the room, it does make the recording sound not great. So in which case, we're going to be dialing it back a bit. In this case, I would say around here. If by any means you just want a very quick job in a way to like properly like get your audio working and you don't want to think about anything, general rule, if you set it to half, I promise it'll be doing way more than nothing at all. And quite frankly, it will make audio sound a lot better. Now, compression is great for the balancing aspect, and it's just in general a way to make sure everything's way more legible. Additionally, you'll notice the thing says pop vocals here. This here is a bunch of different presets. Luckily, Muse makes it incredibly simple. The initial preset for all the things I'm going to recommend you use today are perfectly fine. You don't have to worry about swapping through. If you're noticing as you're editing stuff, it's not quite right, consider swinging through those. It will change some of the back-end stuff. In general, don't really worry about it though. Now, the huge thing to note is sometimes people will say for all these presets, just one setting is fine for everything. Granted, I said something similar with it's better than nothing, but the best result is always going to be a fine-tuned solution. Literally the best monitoring solution you're going to have is your own ears. Just hit play and adjust that knob until it sounds to be about right. Now, next up, after we have this balanced audio, we're going to be adding another effect here. This next thing we're going to be bringing up is called simple EQ. Now, if you've used a car stereo, you kind of probably seen an EQ before. Basically, it's that big thing with all the different stuff that basically says, hey, you can turn the low end stuff down or up, high end up or down. Again, this here is going to be a simplified version of that. For audio, in general, for vocals, you want your bass to be much lower because there's no real reason for it. And additionally, you want the high end to be brought up just a little bit. Again, Muse EQ is going to take that and combine just to one single knob. So I'm going to hit play, and I'm going to slowly bring it in over time.
So, Theo, I've been thinking about starting a podcast. Any tips on how to get started?
Yeah, absolutely. Podcasting is a lot of fun. First things first, you need a concept. What do you want your podcast to be about?
So for me, it sounds good about right there. What this is simply doing is bring the bass down and the high end up. This is not only going to make it sound just a bit more crisp and nice sounding, but additionally, it's going to make it sound a little louder on smaller speakers, purely because a smaller speaker doesn't have much bass to it. So the more high end you can really introduce to that, the better sound is going to be on smaller speakers. So phones, for instance. Also, same with your little earbuds. Now, the next thing we're going to be adding to this vocal track is a thing called de-essing. Now, just going to add this here. Now, what de-essing refers to is sibilances. Sibilance is the S sound coming from your voice. So when you go S, that can get picked up on a mic, and it usually is really aggressive compared to the rest of stuff. Now, the best way to get rid of it, first off, preventive measure, if you stand a bit further back from your mic, it's going to reduce that a little bit. But it's not perfect. Now, we're going to be adding this after our EQ because we're already boosting that top end where that S sound is already going to be. So this, the big thing is, less is more when it comes to de-essing. If you bring it all the way up and you get rid of all those S sounds, you're almost introducing almost a sound that's similar to a lisp. So I'm just going to slowly introduce this.
So, Theo, I've been thinking about starting a...
You can hear it right away, that just pops right out. We're going to bring this about half up.
So, Theo.
A bit more aggressive.
So, Theo.
And all the way would be...
So, Theo.
Now, we don't like it all the way up because that's dipping it down so much, it just sounds weird. It sounds like when you're in a bad Skype call and just a dropout happens. So again, I'm going to bring it down to about here.
So, Theo, I've been thinking about starting...
Now, it's not jumping out as much, but at the same time, you can still hear everything nice and clear. Now, this will apply to everything here. Now, the big reason why I'm recommending, in general, this style of effect compared to Audacity's normal is quite simple. Most of the times when you apply an effect from the other side to Audacity, it is one singular menu that comes up, you apply something, and it prints it to the audio. And you can't go back on your choices. Now, let's say we're playing this audio, and you know what? Let's say the EQ we had is not good. We don't like it. What we can do...
So, Theo, I've been thinking about starting a podcast. Any tips on how to get started?
Yeah, absolutely.
That power button beside means you can just turn it right off. Nothing that's here by any single means is permanent. You can go back to every other one of these and change them as you would like. Additionally, you can change the order with them. In general, I'd recommend this order: compression, EQ, and de-essing. That's going to do wonders for what you're going to want. Now, this is just bonus effects for you, essentially. You're going to want to do this before you export, definitely. But this takes the raw audio and just makes it sound a little bit better. Like I said, if you don't want to think about anything, I would just say, apply these, bring it to half or a little less, call it a day. It's already going to be improving your audio better than it was. But in general, a fine-tuned approach is always going to be good, especially because no two voices are the same.
Yeah, so I think something that I wanted to just bring up was that for people that have done photo editing or graphic design, the term that he's using is non-destructive. So
yes,
that's something that you've probably heard of before when you're using Photoshop or other programs. That's basically what this means, is that whatever you do in this program, you can undo.
And additionally, the last thing I will mention is with all of this, this is only applying this to one single track. If you have two people speaking, you're going to have an additional one sitting there just to make sure, like, you're going to have to do all this again for your next track. If you want to be a bit proactive, one of the things you can do is when you save your Audacity file, you can technically rename it each time and get rid of the audio and record into these effects. So if you don't want to adjust it every time, you can make yourself essentially what's called a preset. Again, fully optional, as with all of this. If you're listening to the audio recording, you're like, this is amazing, perfect. Again, your ears are your best monitoring tool you're ever going to get. Trust them with your life. So I'm going to pass this back over to Jay to show you how to publish your stuff into the wide world of podcasts.
So what we're going to use today is Spotify for podcasters. The address to access this is podcasters.spotify.com. I'm not going to walk you through how to set up an account, but it's very simple. You can use your Gmail account or your Apple account. You can use an email address, whatever you want, but it's free. So please go in and sign up for this. And once you've signed up, you can then upload your audio files, get them ready to distribute to all the platforms, and then submit. So we're going to actually walk you through that. Once you've set up, I'm going to choose new episode from the left-hand side. You should see this once you have an account set up. It's going to bring up this window. It's going to ask you to select a file. So I'm going to choose select a file and browse to where we uploaded our files, which right here, podcast test. I'm going to choose open. It's going to upload it to the platform. I'm going to give this a title. So remember, make sure that your title is unique and makes sense. So we're going to just, for this purpose, call it podcast tutorial. Give it a detailed description. You can use HTML tags if you like, if you're more familiar with that. For this purpose, we're not going to do that. We're just going to call this testing file. It's going to ask you some things like publish date. You can schedule it for another day if you choose. You can choose schedule and pick a date. For this purpose, we're going to choose now. Does your content have explicit content? Now that'll be determining on who can watch your content. So if your content does have explicit content, I would choose yes, so that 18 and under could probably not access it. For our purposes, we're going to say no. Does your podcast have promotional content? For instance, some podcasters you'll notice have products that they're actually advertising on their show. I would make sure that you would choose yes if you are, no if you're not. Under additional details, I'm going to choose the little arrow here, scroll down. It's going to ask you what kind of episode it is. Is it a full? Is it a trailer? Is it bonus? It all comes down to what you're actually doing. Does your podcast have a session number or an episode number? You can choose those options. And then here's where we're going to choose our cover art. So you do see some art here now, but if you're first time here, it should be blank. So I'm going to choose change. And then we're going to browse to the thumbnails folder that we provided. We provided 3 different versions. I'm just going to choose one of these, hit open. It's going to give you a preview of what it's going to look like. And you can zoom in and out. I'm going to say save. Once that is done, we're going to choose next. It's going to ask you if you want to add some interactivity to your podcast. If you want to add a Q&A or a poll. For this purpose, we're not going to, but feel free to experiment with those things. Choose next again. It's going to allow you to review all of your information before you submit. Make sure that everything is correct. And then once you're done, you click publish and you're off to the races. Your podcast is now distributed to all the major platforms, and anyone with a computer or a smartphone will now be able to access it all. And that is creating a podcast. Does anyone have any questions? Everybody is quiet or shy. I'm not sure which. I hope you all found it easy. I mean, doing any kind of editing is not easy. It takes practice, but I'm pretty confident that if you really want to do this and you're passionate about it, you will go in and practice over and over again and get it right and have something engaging for everyone to listen to. So if there are no other questions, let me just make sure that I'm going to look at the chat here and make sure nobody else is asking questions. And just to let you guys know that this session is being recorded. Therefore, a version of this will be available probably as early as next week. And then I'll have Amanda send out an email for everybody. Oh, do we have any sessions on video podcasting? So we had 2 sessions on video editing. They were not particularly about video podcasting, but all of these same things can be applied to video podcasting. So some people call it vodcasting. When I do my podcast on Tuesday nights, it is video, but we also distribute it as an audio form by itself so that if people do not want to watch the whole thing, they can just listen to it. That's something else you want to take into consideration, that if you're doing things on YouTube, or there are multiple platforms like Rumble. Can you think of any other, Theo? What are some of the other platforms that people put video podcasts on?
I mean, a lot of people use YouTube as well. Like that's a pretty common one. I think that's like the main one.
That's the main one. Yeah. YouTube, Rumble. There's actually a website you can go to called, I'll find the link, but it'll give you an option for probably a half a dozen different platforms that you can upload to. Yeah, we can definitely put those in a message to you. But if anybody here wants any more information on this details about podcasting, please contact me directly. I'm jay.williams@smu.ca. I'll put my email address in the chat here. And if you want, we can do a one-on-one session. I'm on campus on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I'm available over Teams or over Zoom every day of the week. So thank you very much, and happy podcasting.